What's up, guys, and welcome to yet another action-packed episode of Show Me Your Rig. This is season number 3, episode number 2. This is the small form factor season. We are focusing mainly on mini ITX and micro ATX desktops or custom builds that use those smaller kinds of components. As a quick reminder, like we do before every one of these episodes, this email address right up here is what you need to know if you are interested in being on the show. Send me in your name, your system specs, as many high quality photos as you can, what you use the system for, and any other information that I might find interesting that I might want to share with the viewers. Also, as we have in previous seasons, occasionally I'll probably slip in a larger system that somebody has submitted that I find super interesting. However, the end of season prize, that Amazon gift card, will only go to one of those small form factor builds, so don't worry. And without further ado, let's get right into system number 1 for this month. If you've been searching for that final piece for your show build, look no further than Thermaltake's new Water RAM DDR4. The low-profile 3200 speed DIMMs look great in any configuration, but the RGB magic really happens when you attach the included custom water block. Compatible with Thermaltake's extensive RGB ecosystem and Amazon Alexa, Water RAM is a true eye-catcher that will make your system stand out from the crowd. So check out the link below to learn more. Jimmy J brings us our very first build, and it is an interesting one. Jimmy writes, "Hey, I'm Jimmy, and I'm really excited for the new season of Show Me Your Rig. I'm a big fan of small form factor builds and would love to submit this build in the Cougar QBX Kaze for the show. It was my first water-cooled build and my third build overall. I use it for pretty much everything, gaming, general media use, and programming." All right, so the specs are, this is a Cougar QBX Kaze, or case, which I've never seen before. So that's super interesting. We've got a Ryzen 7 1700 and an Asus B350i Strix motherboard. We've got 2x16 gigabyte kit of Trident Z DDR4 3333. Okay. A Toshiba 256 gig NVMe SSD, Micron 2 terabyte SSD, an NVIDIA Titan X Pascal, Corsair SF600 power supply, and lots of water cooling equipment from EK, Barrow, and Hardware Labs. This build actually came into me. He had sent this, I guess, last month, but I needed more photos. I think he only sent me like 1 or 2 photos. But I was interested in what I saw for a couple of different reasons. So first of all, anytime you're going to put a full custom loop, including graphics card, into a case like this, it's going to look interesting. It's going to be interesting because of the way you're going to have to mount your pump and reservoir, the way you're going to have to run your tubes, how you're going to have to like cram in your radiators. And he did something that I don't do, but I mean is, I guess, something that you can do. And he put a fan on the back of the case just to prevent it from mounting. Hold on, sorry. Oh, I don't know what's happening here. To prevent it from interfering with like his tubing runs and his CPU block here. So that is something you could do. It's not something that I would generally do, but it saves a lot of space in the case, especially when you're dealing with cramped situation like this. It's an option. He also did this loop-de-loop bend right here, and one of the reasons that this bend specifically interests me is because it looks good. Like it looks like it's done well, and then you look at this bend, which is a much easier bend to do. Although this one not easy. You have the 1-2 kind of combo bend right here, which is pretty difficult to pull off. But this one's not great. This one is pretty messed up, to be honest. And I'm sorry, Jimmy, for saying so, but yeah, this bend looks not great, especially when you're looking at something like this, which you had to kind of look at it. You have to like curl that right in there, and this one's perfect. Hey guys, so right now I am editing this Show Me Your Rig episode, and I realized that what I said about that loop-de-loop bend is probably not true. That's probably overall an easier bend to make than that double bend that Jimmy kind of messed up, I guess. So sorry about that, but my points about how it looks, I guess, are still pretty valid. But yeah, that single long loop, not an easy bend to make because you do have to angle it correctly. I guess, but it is just kind of one bend as opposed to several continuous bends, which is more difficult overall. So sorry for misspeaking, I guess, and let's keep going. I don't know what happened with this bend here. I've seen better, but it doesn't take away that much from the system when you look at it like full on from the side, because you don't really see like this down here if you're just looking at it straight, I don't think. Well, I guess maybe a little bit, but overall, this is a great build. This is really, it's well thought out and it's interestingly done. Like, loops don't always have to look the same, and especially when you're dealing with this kind of a restricted area, restricted space, and you want to loop in your graphics card too. You use some slim fans down here just to make sure that you had enough airflow going through that radiator. This is a good job. I would just think that if you spent this much time on your setup and on your rig, that maybe you redo this bend here, because it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Other than that, whenever you mount reservoirs horizontally like this, it's almost inevitable that you will see some condensation up here, as you can't fill it to the brim. I would see if you could fill it a little bit more than that, though. I like to see maybe, just the top be empty. This is a lot. That you could probably fill that a little bit more. Again, not a deal breaker, and I'm sure your system runs great. But every time I look at this, it pains me, because everything else in the system probably took you forever to do. So I would assume that you'd want it to look good. This just kind of sticks out. So I would redo this. Other than that, though, really nice system. Titan X Pascal. Kind of you don't usually see that with like a Ryzen 1700. But that's not to say that it can't be done, and you have done it. So this is a really good build. Probably could use just a very few tweaks, but you were creative with how you mounted your hardware. You got the fan on the outside. You've got these loop-de-loo tubing runs just to make sure that everything fits right, and you got the horizontally mounted reservoir going on. So this is a really good job. Could use a little refinement, but other than that, overall, really nicely done, especially for your first loop. So next one, I'm sure is going to be better. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for sending this in. Let's move on. Next up is Clint G, and he submitted a build in a case that I'm reasonably certain we're going to see a lot more of this season, and that is the Ghost S1. These cases I always find really interesting. I've never built in one myself, but the way that they orient the hardware and pack it in there is impressive. So let's see what Clint built. He writes, "My name is Clint, and this is a secondary system I built specifically to use in my media room to play PC racing games, fighting games, platformers, etc. Games that just work better with a controller and sitting on a couch. It's connected to a 1080p TV that does have a reasonably low level of input lag and does 120 Hz natively. Yes, it does sit above my filthy consoles, looking down upon them in their rightful place." Savage. So we got a low Ghost S1 Mark II case. The CPU is an i5-8600K, delidded. The cooler is a Cryorig C7 copper with a Corsair ML120 Pro fan. GPU is an EVGA 1080 Ti SC. Motherboard is an MSI X370i Gaming Pro Carbon AC. I think you mean a Z370. It would be difficult to put an 8600K in an X370 motherboard. In any event, typo there, I'm sure. The memory is Trident Z RGB, a 2x8 gig kit. Power supply is a Corsair SF600 with custom MD PCX sleeved cables. And we got a couple of NVMe drives from Samsung. All right, so let's see, Clint, what you brought us with your Ghost S1 case. And just another thing about these cases is the way that they seamlessly blend into a situation like this, like a media center, home theater PC, something like that. You don't even notice them. It just looks like part of the decor, which is great. Even with it on, not a whole lot of bling going on there. So this is I guess an artsy side shot of that ML fan from Corsair on top of that Cryorig cooler, and we've got the custom sleeve cables running down here too. The GTX 1080 Ti sitting there with more custom sleeve cables. And I think if you're going to do a build like this, you don't need custom sleeve cables, but they certainly help. Not because they are individually sleeved, but because you can have them made to length. So if you know exactly how long you need them, you don't have to end up with any excess. Because in a case like this, it's basically impossible to hide cables to stuff away excess. There's just no room. So yeah, these kinds of setups definitely help. And we've got the copper heatsink right there showing through from that cryo cooler. That's pretty cool. This fan looks enormous. How did you mount this? How did you mount this on top of this cooler? That's what I'm curious about. Is it just sitting there? Is there some kind of way to affix it? If you are watching this, Clint, let me know in the comments how you affixed this fan to the rest of the build. Because it doesn't, I guess maybe, is it screwed in there? It's hard to tell if that's a screw or not. Yeah, there is a screw. There's one screw right there. And that, I guess, lines up with like the corner of your cooler. Does it not line up with the other corners? I don't know. It's a weird situation here. Let me know, Clint. But here's the 1080 Ti. With this generation of card, this is the Pascal generation. EVGA did a great job with the design of their coolers. Kept them to 2 slots, and they look really good too, and they cool really well. So there's almost nothing that I don't like about them, and they fit really well in a case like this. So it looks like there's another screw down there. So maybe I'm just seeing things wrong. Am I just seeing this wrong? Because to me, it does not look like these line up. So maybe I'm just not super familiar with the way this mounting mechanism works here, because clearly here is the heat sink, right? And usually you have your mounting mechanism right outside of where the heat sink is. But these are overlapping like the rear I/O of the motherboard. Like this is sitting on top of like the audio jacks. So I don't know how this would work. I'm confused. In any event, Clint, I'm getting way off track here. Sorry for that. You got a great build going on. The Ghost S1 case, 1080 Ti, I dig it. A delidded 8600K. I wonder how much that's helping you in you know, with cooling in a cramped environment like this. I'd be interested to see. But in any event, this head tree has been weird, and I apologize for that. I've been mainly focused on that stupid cooler. But this looks great. Good job, Clint. Thank you so much for sending it in. If you got more of those, if anybody has more Ghost cases that they want to send in, I'd definitely like to look at them, because seeing hardware packed in here like this is always really cool. Regardless of if your cooler is screwed on or not, because I clearly can't tell. All right, last one, let's go. Last one is Peter W, and he keeps it real concise, and he says, "Hello, I am a 67-year-old from Australia. My little rig I did. The CPU is an 8700K from Intel. The motherboard is just says Z370. I guess we'll figure out which Z370 it is. Memory is 16 gigs of 32-speed DDR4. Okay. GPU is a Zotac GTX 1080. Power supply is a Corsair HX 750i. The case is a Corsair 280X. Case that I like very much. M.2 drive is from ADATA. It's an SX8200. He's got another SSD from Samsung. And he's got one 240 and one 120 EK and alpha cool radiator. And he says the fans are from China, and they are Thermaltake knockoffs. All right. Well, looks like you're taking some photos in the kitchen, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Take them wherever you want. I actually like photos that are taken not in a computer room, although photos of setups look pretty cool too. It just gives a different angle, like people who take their computers outside and take photos of them out there. It's cool. It looks different. But in any event, the 280X I do like. I liked building in this case. It was very well laid out, and although I know the airflow could be a little bit of a problem with this glass in the front, I didn't have any issues with the build that I did, and I wonder how your thermals are actually. So here we go. Here is your internal layout. It looks like you took some photos with the glass on, which is a no-no, but I'll forgive it this time because this is a cool looking build. So here is your water cooling setup, and you've looped in, looks like everything. So this is a water block that I've never messed around with before, but it looks like the G1/4 fittings are on the end of the card because this is a mini. So this is perfect for a small case like this. You don't have to worry about any kind of height restrictions, where sometimes where the inlet and outlet are on the side here and you have a case that's fairly narrow, you can't water cool it because there's no way to run the tubing over there. But with the fittings over here instead, no problem at all. So that looks pretty cool. Looks like the fans are from Cool Moon, not Thermaltake, Cool Moon. So this is it looks like you got a, okay, so this is a Strix motherboard, so, and some Dominator Platinum. Why wouldn't you mention them? These are great parts. This photo is a little blurry. And so you got the inline coolant temperature monitor. I think this also measures flow. I don't know for sure. I know there are some that do both. In any event, that looks like a pretty neat place to put it, I guess. I hope it's not resting on top of the GPU, because you don't want that to cause any pressure and you know, maybe cause damage to the slot or anything. But you know, it's a good position for it, so I like that you put it there. And these are a lot of photos that are very similar, but you did a couple things in here that I like. You have your looks like, so down here you have, I assume this is a drain and this is a fill. See if there's more angles of this. So you have your fill up here with easy access so that you can top this off when needed, and it's needed, so do it. But yeah, you could top this off really easily. You have your red fittings that match the coolant. I think they match pretty well, actually. I'm not sure why you comboed it with nickel, because I'd be curious to see if you could kit this out with all the same kind of fittings, and that is something that I prefer to do, if I can, is to make sure that all the fittings match. So either all nickel or all red. It's not a huge issue, but because you have so many fittings in here, it does create quite the contrast. Have we reached the end? We've reached the end. So these are all the photos that he sent me, but this is a good looking system. So this is a micro ATX case, and you used a mini ITX board, which actually would probably help you spacing wise as far as fitting all this custom loop gear in here. If you had a micro ATX board in here, I've built micro ATX systems in this case that I've felt are, although I like the layout, a little cramped, especially if you have a larger GPU. So using a mini ITX board in here actually will give you a little bit extra room. This is a good looking build. You have so here's your drain. So I wonder what this, am I just seeing things? So I guess this, does this go, I thought this went like out the back or something, but maybe this one goes up. Maybe it goes up. That would make more sense. Okay, so this down here comes out of the rad. Comes up. I am confused. I could use some different angles of photos here. So this is 2 systems in a row that I've been confused about. I'm sure it works. You got it all hooked up. It's not leaking all over the place, so you didn't miss anything. But I'd be interested to see how this is set up. But it looks like, so this down here, which we could see a little more clearly in this photo. So here's your drain, and then your fill is up here. So in any event, you have both a fill and a drain, which is really good loop planning. And otherwise it looks pretty good. And you got it in your kitchen, so you could eat some scrambled eggs while you game. Good job. Thanks for sending it in. So that is it for episode number 2 of season 3 of Show Me Your Ring. Thank you so much to our entrants today. If you guys want to be on the show and you have a system that will fit the parameters for this season, make sure to write down this email address right up here. Get your submissions in. We still got a ways to go in this season. We won't be wrapping it up until into 2020, believe it or not. But every month we'll be doing a new one of these. So if you want to be featured, send in your submission. Thank you so much to everybody who watches this channel. Get subscribed if you are not already, and I'll see you next time.